kind of use films, I think, to escape into a world of fantasy away from my parents, who I love and who are alive and having a great time, but have remarried since the divorce. But during the time of my filmmaking days as a teenager or preteen, my parents weren't getting along, and there was a lot of noise in the house at night, and I think that it was an escape for me, a great escape for me.
Spielberg's troubled family background and his desire to escape into a world of fantasy was dramatized in the climax of his greatest box office success, E.T. To film Spielberg, we went to LA to the studio in which he was filming, and he had his place on the lot. They have these rather elaborate bungalows, and each of the bungalows has a name on big, with Mr. Such and Such, who's a famous director, Mr. Such and Such, another famous director. It's rather odd. It's sort of an extremely superior Butlins in a way, and very cheerful. And he was extraordinarily enthusiastic about the whole process. He was flattering about the program, and he had seen a few of them by the sound of it. But he wanted to be part of it. It was to do with film. How did we do this? How did we do that? He'd started making films when he was a child, and he imitated the Cecil B. DeMille train crash.
I used to collect model trains. I'd put them together, and I used to have amazing train wrecks. I remember thinking, how am I going to perpetuate and kind of prolong the moment of a great crash? How can I enjoy it more? And I remember one day borrowing my father's camera, 8mm camera, which was only in the house to, you know, collect memories on film. Now everybody uses, you know, video and the like, but we had 8mm then. And I remember taking the camera and staging the last train wreck on film from all angles, cutting back and forth to the one train approaching left to right and the second train approaching right to left, and close-ups of the little people staring as if they're about to witness some sort of disaster, which indeed was about to happen. And then, of course, filming from a two-shot, the trains coming together and going over the tracks. And trying to get the lens as low to the tracks as possible to give the train some stature and some reality. And I remember looking at the film over and over again, 20, 30 times.
How old were you when you did that?
I was about 12 years old.
And they stayed, I think, most of his films in his childhood. And they had two of the great marks of childhood. One was terrible fears, and the other was longings for happiness and happy endings and a life without pain. And at the same time, and running alongside it, was a very sharp Hollywood man.
Jaws began as a best-selling novel by Peter Benchley. What appealed to Spielberg in the storytelling?
It's less storytelling and more like looking at a grand menu. You know, you just sort of get to see what's on the shark's menu and who he's going to go after. And for me, it was just a lot of fun to make a movie about an inevitable confrontation between man and his elements.
Can you talk in detail, or a little more detail, about one sequence in Jaws? For example, where Scheider's on the beach, his wife's massaging his neck, and he's looking for the shark.
Well, I just remember wanting to introduce 5 potential victims and just set up a kind of projected paranoia from Roy Scheider's position in his straight-back beach chair. He knows there's a shark out there. He knows that there's something swimming out there that's as large as a station wagon.
I sat and watched Jaws with a stopwatch to see how long it took for the shark to turn up. And if you only include the shark where, you know, the real shark that kills the boy, it's nearly an hour. It's pretty much an hour, and that's incredible. It's all about what you don't see. Their films are really about the audience, and that kind of respect for the audience, and the fact that they're using their imagination and they're thinking and they're having feelings, and I think a lot of modern cinema forgets that, and is so quick trying to give you everything they think you might want. And there's like a confidence in the filmmaking that you feel a real intimate connection with the screen. Like, you feel a direct, it's kind of like a dream that you half remember, and as it's happening you're like, it feels part of you.
Chief Brody's nightmares are fulfilled in that one moment, where the camera trombones or zoom dollies to stretch his paranoia into reality, which was the whole purpose of that particular shot. But I've always wanted to do that shot, but you know, I wanted to save it for a very important place in that movie to use it. It's the kind of shot if it's used too many times, it's abused, and people get very tired of looking at it. It also can cause, you know, seasickness in a movie theater.
Close Encounters was the first feature film that you yourself wrote. That must make it more personal. Where did it start in the back of your mind?
Well, it really started from just a feeling that I always had as a kid, that whatever's up there in space, and I was convinced, I think, as early as I can remember, that there is life in space off this planet. That whatever is out there has to be friendly, and I wanted to bring it closer to Earth.
One celebrated aspect of the Close Encounters film is the sophistication of the technology. In fact, when I first saw it, I thought that one of the reasons why it was so popular and so marvelous to look at was that the cinema became one of the few places where you could realize there was modern technology. We're all being told that we live in a land of wonderful, an era of wonderful technology, but all we see, we Earthlings, is the odd rocket taking off.
Exactly.
And inside our houses, the telephone doesn't work.
Exactly.
And that's what we see. So actually, the cinema was saying, no, you do live in an age of modern technology. Look what we can do in the cinema.
I agree with you. That's how I saw part of the movie, having made it, after having made it. I really wanted, you know, America, when we first landed on the moon, there was 12-hour coverage. I mean, as long as they were up there and possibly in jeopardy, as long as there was drama in space, the three networks and all the independent stations really covered the heck out of it. And in a way, I felt good because I saw this tremendous technology from this planet that put men on the moon for the first time. That made me really proud to be an American, to be part of the 20th century, and to be growing up in the age of technology, and then super technology, and then soon quantum technology. And I was so excited about all of this that I thought, what if it wasn't a man on the moon, but what if it were creatures coming here and meeting us for the first time? We wouldn't receive them on the White House lawn. We certainly wouldn't receive them in a tent in the middle of, you know, the Gobi Desert. We probably would arrange a meeting where the two technologies, quantum and terrestrial, could meet for the first time and exchange information.
It's very childlike. It feels like, I guess that's what maybe some people are trying to do, or I'm trying to do when I watch a movie, is I'm trying to, like, it's a little time machine. It's so hard to feel like a kid again, like you grow old so quick. Anything that you can do that kind of gives you that feeling, and putting on Close Encounters, I'm instantly transported to the mindset of being, you know, a 6-year-old or something, and the sense of wonder and how epic the world is, and how much adventure there is ahead.
This was a movie about not them versus us, but about a gift coming from there. It was a celebration of a meeting more glorious than I think when man crawled out of the sludge and, you know, learned how to make a fire, and, you know, Christopher Columbus traded with the you know, Indians, and I just think it was probably the most historic meeting, and it should be celebrated. It should be it should be the 4th of July.
You went to Raiders of the Lost Ark. Did you go there to Raiders of the Lost Ark at the invitation of George Lucas? Did he invite you to get involved in that?
No, I kind of bribed my way on board that one. He told me the story just because I said I wanted to make a James Bond movie someday, and he said, I got a better film than James Bond. And we were in Hawaii in 1977 before his film opened, Star Wars opened. He told me the Raiders story, and I said, you're right, I want to do it. He said, well, I don't know, there's another director who's helping me with this right now. And I said, well, if he ever falls out, call me. And the director fell out, and he called me about a month later, and then I wound up doing the movie.
Lucas and Coppola and Spielberg himself, of course, took on old Hollywood, but they only took it on to beat it at his own game in a way, and very soon they were the new Hollywood and flying. They made some of the most successful films of the last 60 or 70 years. And Spielberg made film after film that seemed to hit the nerve of his generation, hit the nerve of America, and hit the nerve of a world audience, which has always been Hollywood's trick and its boast.
Señor.
What sort of preparation do you put into a sequence like that? You've kindly let us copy off some of your storyboards for that. How long would it take you to do those? And is that all the preparation, or is that part of the preparation?
Well, certainly the storyboards are a springboard for all divisions in a film to come together and discuss costume and makeup, what special effects are needed. Certainly, often the lighting, the source of the lighting, the mood of the scene. Was it dark? Is it bright? Is it lit by torch? Is it lit by sun coming through a small crevice in a cave? But it's the beginning of all conversations in production meetings, and it's really a way to shortcut. I don't like being too verbose about a movie. I don't like having to repeat myself or to individually talk to people. I'd rather have everybody who's involved in a particular shot or effect to all be together in sort of like a huddle, like a football game. And better to be in the huddle with a big drawing of what you're trying to achieve than with a lot of words, because everybody interprets words subjectively.
You get the impression, like, I mean, I was very lucky on Godzilla. Cameraman who operated the camera had done the last, like, 12 or 13 Spielberg films. So I tried not to annoy him, but whenever I could, I'd ask him questions about, and he would tell me how confident, like, as a director he is. Like, it's this shot, it leads to this, we come around here, then we see this, and it cuts to that, and that's all they get. They don't sort of cover themselves. There's part of me that always wants to be organic and you know, kind of find something. But I guess the trick is to adapt. Like, to when you realize there's something better, you quickly adapt and allow that to happen. And I've heard that that's kind of the way he works.
Do you change much? Do you?
I change all the time. I'm constantly changing.
The actors change the dialogue? You
Everything.
change the dialogue?
Oh, yeah. I change the dialogue every day. I change the dialogue every day on Raiders. Matter of fact, Raiders has very few original lines from the original Lawrence Kasdan script. I would say a majority of the dialogue has been changed, juxtaposed, and added to, all through it. I also love changing visuals. I mean, the perfect example in Raiders is the sequence where Indy goes after the swordsman, the black swordsman with the huge scimitar. And in the original script, there was a 3-page fight. It was a battle described as probably the most definitive whip versus the sword fight in cinematic history, as described in the script. And the day that Harrison Ford came to the set, he had a case of the local Tunisian touristas, and he couldn't really stand upright. He was all stooped over. He had to run to the bathroom several times, and he was having a very hard time controlling himself. So I was exhausted, and we were tired, and it was towards the end of the schedule. I said, look, let's all be heroes. Shoot the guy with your gun, and run and save the girl. So I was able to do the old John Ford fantasy, tear 3 pages out of the script and say we're another day ahead of schedule. We moved on to the next shot after he shot the swordsman.
any rules for filming action?
No, there's no rules. There's a law of science. I don't believe there's a law of cinema. I think rules tend to, you know, stagger and topple people who really dream and are dreamers. I think it's.
You think that's where it all comes out of?
I think movies are dreams. They really are. They're daydreams that you often get bad grades over when you're not concentrating on the schoolwork, and you grow up being a daydreamer like I did, and then someday you take those daydreams, you turn them into something. I think that cinema is a very, very, very personal, highly interpretive extension of an idea which is invisible, and then you've got to somehow make it physical.
What drew you to E.T.?
Just loneliness, I guess. A great appeal to the stars for a good friend and somebody who would be with me and be my magical buddy and, you know, show me things that I couldn't possibly imagine, and I would show him things that he probably couldn't possibly imagine, and we would have this rather cosmic relationship. And I wanted to make a love story. I wanted to do a film about American kids, and they all sort of came together in E.T.
So you had these ideas that you wanted to do all these things. Were you looking across scripts? Were you thinking up ideas for yourself? Did you actually go into the business of seeking a project to fit these interests and demands of yours?
No, because that's all subconscious thought. That's all the stuff that sort of just runs through your head, rambles through your head. When I was making Close Encounters, I thought, what if I take the creature at the end of Close Encounters and keep him on Earth and then tell his story someday? I mean, it's always been on my mind to explore a relationship between a creature and a small child.
Come. Stay. Out. Ouch.
Elliot's father is recently separated from his mother, and he is a kid without a family, a real unit. And he's on the verge of probably becoming not a very nice kid in a couple of years. He's not going bad. He's certainly no way you can see the movie and imagine him to be a juvenile delinquent. But you can imagine him withdrawing more and more and deeper into kind of an evolving depression. And in a way, E.T. coming into his life is Providence.
I'll be right here.
It's just perfection, and maybe it's because I was a kid, but it's like, how do you end a movie like that? A lot of, you know, a big problem is like once the creature goes away, how are you going to end it? And I just love the fact that as it all climaxes, you have all the different shots, and even as like probably back then, or as a filmmaker today, you go, okay, what's he going to do? How's this going to end? And it's kind of got one of the most perfect endings in a movie, in that you see E.T. take off. And it starts to go, what is this about? What am I going to do? And it goes up to the family, and you see their family all holding each other, and you realise the movie's really about the fact it's brought this family back together. Like when you see them at the start, they're kind of broken a bit. It's not quite functioning, and now this has brought them back. And then it ends with that shot that just goes right up to Elliot's face as the wind's blowing, and you realise this film's not really about E.T., right? This could have been a dream or something. This really is about a boy and how his life is now changed forever.
you say there's a sense in which E.T. is some sort of plea for a permanent childhood?
Yeah, I think it's probably part of it is me, you know, calling out, saying to myself, you know, I'm 34 years old, I'm not married, I don't have kids, I'm probably going to be married, I'm probably going to have kids. Is this going to be my last summer vacation before I have to be a responsible adult? And maybe Edie represents my last summer before going back to school. You know, the school of hard knocks in real life. I hope.